Good afternoon. My name is Prachi Kadam and my thesis topic is Decoding Cultural Trauma Architecture as a Remedy for Distressed Communities. Trauma is not a sudden event, violently triggered and enacted, but rather a series of reactions that the event triggers and that spread out in the body over a period of time. When these reactions not only manifest within the people, but also lead to a disturbing transformation of spaces and places, the trauma no longer remains a psychological issue but becomes a socio-cultural one, giving rise to the cultural trauma. Cultural trauma can therefore be understood as a loss of people, space, and place identity, even when the event that caused it is placed far back in time. Since cultural trauma is a socio-cultural issue and architecture is meant to serve the society, what role does architecture play in healing cultural trauma where culture is the victim? Trauma studies often tend to look at a sensitive, personalized approach in healing the victim. Can an application of trauma studies in architecture help create impactful solutions for the affected culture? These questions led me to my thesis aim, which is to use trauma studies to explore the role of architecture in healing cultural trauma. Based on my interpretation of cultural trauma, I identified different events which have caused it in different places throughout India. Amongst these examples, the case of Girangaon in Mumbai was selected for further study due to the potential that it held in terms of being cured by an architectural intervention. A trauma-informed approach indicates a shift in thinking where instead of asking what's wrong with you, we should ask what happened to you. Such an approach in architecture would require architects to establish a narrative for the affected place they're serving in order to understand truly what is lost of their culture. Using this approach, a cultural trauma narrative for Girangaon was established. Girangaon in Mumbai, a mill abode, was known for its girni culture up till the mill owners' strike in 1982. This event led to the shutting down of mills, which led to the lands becoming prized possessions. Today, a delayed reaction of the event can be seen in terms of the haphazard redevelopment and gentrification taking place in Girangaon. This trauma of urban violence has led to a shift from the girni culture to a pure consumer culture of the place. Girangaon is spread over nearly 600 acres of land, with almost 60% of land having undergone redevelopment. The site selected for intervention in Girangaon is the Lalbagh precinct in Parel. It is situated along the Lalbagh flyover and besides the Digvijay Mills compound. The redeveloped buildings in the context of the selected site are visible indicators of the trauma of urban violence. They create an economic divide within the community through a stark contrast in the design of the saleable and tenement components and pay absolutely no attention to the cultural aspect of Lalbagh. Within this densely packed neighborhood, the selected site in Lalbagh is one of the very few pieces of land which lies at a moment of historical unprecedented transformation. The total site area chosen is 10,000 square meters and consists of two important components which contribute to the culture of the place: its market and its stalls. Analysis of the site has been done where all existing markets and housing on site has been marked and documented. In total, there are 239 vendors and 30 inhabited flats on site. What can be seen is that the site has grown organically, leading to a formation of Chivra Gully and Sala Gully. One of the most important landmarks on site is the Hanuman temple towards the east and the Ganesh idol location beside it. The only open spaces on site are the Garamkara Maidan towards the west and the space beside the temple. During the analysis, I observed that with the setup of temporary infrastructure in different parts of the site, Lalbagh transforms itself immensely during the festival of Ganesh Chaturthi. In order to understand the quality of temporality as portrayed by Lalbagh, the site needed to be understood and studied in two different time periods. One, by mapping the everyday, and two, by mapping the festivities. Mapping the everyday of Lalbagh was done by analyzing the functioning of its dukans and makans. Lalbagh is very famous for its markets throughout the year. A walk through the lanes of Lalbagh is filled with a variety of different smells. The shops that contribute majorly to this experience are the Chivra shops along the Chivra Gully, the Masala shops along the Masala Gully, the tightly packed puja shops situated towards the main road, and the flower vendors in front of the Hanuman temple. Apart from these major markets, what could be seen is a high number of jewelry shops on site, giving an insight into the domestic needs that this place fulfills. The fish market on the site towards the north is of immense significance as its construction is the sole purpose for the establishment of the famous Lal Bagh Raja. Apart from these markets within the site, the Komri Gali with its chicken shop and the vegetable vendors along the fringes bring in a lot of footfall along the main roadside. After numerous site visits, what could be understood was that the true culture of these markets lies in these gullies of Lalbagh, which are incomplete without its chaos. Mapping the everyday of Lalbagh's makans, there is only one chawl situated on site, which houses a total of 30 flats. This building runs parallelly along the gullies and is a G+2 structure. The chawl culture of Lalbagh is vested within the narrow passages of this chawl, which plays a crucial role in the community interaction. Mapping the festivities of Lalbagh, Lalbagh, the home to Mumbai's most awaited festival of Ganesh Chaturthi, undergoes immense transformation during this period. This festival of 11 days transforms the site into an urban living room. This festival can be seen to take place in three parts, namely impermanence, euphoria, and reversibility. For creating the ambience for the 11 days of the festival, all the dukans are shut 21 days prior to its start. For installation of temporary infrastructure which brings in the quality of impermanence on the site, even the fish market on the site changes its functions and is used as a place to store Ganesh idols. During the festival, the site is a place of complete euphoria with absolutely no pause button to its functioning. It is only after the final Visarjan day that the shops return back to their original state and gives the site a sense of reversibility, however, with the chaos still remaining intact. This area of Lal Bagh has been running in the same manner for the past 85 years, with its neighbors getting redeveloped at an immense pace, undergoing the trauma of gentrification. And owing to the age-old crumbling infrastructure of its stalls and markets, Lal Bagh lies next in the line of redevelopment. If Lalbagh undergoes redevelopment like its neighbors, it would undergo a complete cultural trauma, taking away its place identity in the future and making it merge with the surrounding fabric. This trauma of urban violence, which is a common trend of redevelopment, takes into absolutely no consideration the cultural aspects on site. It would lead to a loss of spatial character by monotonous construction and would alienate the place with the standardized and so-called modern design templates, taking away the true essence and character of Lalbagh, thus traumatizing it. So will Lalbagh become a victim of this disruptive urban transformation, or can it find a different way to survive and thrive? This makes it necessary to think of viable solutions to design problems without compromising on the necessary and relevant changes required by the place. Hence, the design program that I suggest would entail community participation and would work on the lines of self-redevelopment. The Self-Redevelopment Act, according to MARA, has shown immense success rates and has allowed people to choose their own architects and design strategies. The project would be funded by the Lal Bagh Raja Trust and would consume a total FSI of 4. Can a culturally competent architectural solution act as an antidote to this trauma? The concept for my design program started with the translation of the method of self-redevelopment into my zoning. It started by locating and marking the most important nodes on site, being aware of the significance of the two gullies, the Masala Gully and the Chivda Gully were retained. A 0.4-meter wide platform was inserted along the entire gully, taking into consideration the infrastructure that needs to be set up during the festival. In order to ease traffic congestion, a drop-off point along the main road and 2.5-meter wide pathways were added in places of maximum footfall. Taking into consideration the close proximity of the site to 4 railway stations and having observed that two-wheelers is the most preferred mode of transport in the area, parking areas have been provided along the road to make it easy for people to pick up goods and ride off. In order to make the main Masala Gully pedestrianized and to provide an ease of servicing, a service road was introduced along the Maidan. Considering the lack of public infrastructure on site, a public restroom was placed in the center for easy accessibility to all. All the 30 masala shops were placed along the Masala and 17 chivda shops along the Chivda Gully. The 16 tailor shops, 15 jewelry shops, the rest of the miscellaneous shops were placed in a way that internal gullies were formed. These gullies helped break the monotony of the straight gullies while allowing the site to breathe. Next, the puja shops were shifted towards the mandir along with the flower vending area. Understanding that buying vegetables is a domestic activity that requires minimal intervention but is done while buying other goods, raised platforms are introduced along the jewelry and puja shops, which helped serve 50 vegetable vendors. This led to the formation of one more intermediate between them. The fish market, being highly significant, was kept the same, and the go-downs were replaced by the chicken shops, which were earlier along the fringes of the site chicken market. This ensured a complete poultry and meat zone on one corner of the site. The godowns were shifted on top of the jewelry markets with a chili drying area, and a freight lift for carrying goods was inserted at the corner. The residential zone was shifted to the larger plot and was separated into 3 buildings. Taking into consideration the festivals on site, a changeable pavilion has been designed in the open space in front of the mandir. The following is the master plan of my entire site. For easier understanding of its functioning, the site can be divided into Zone 1, 2, 3, 6. Zone 1 consists of chura shops and tailor shops. Having observed the existing chura and tailor shops on site, the following plan was proposed. Keeping in mind the overlap of the residential and public activities along the chura gully, separate public entries and private entries have been created so as to ease the circulation for its visitors and maintain the privacy of its residents. The chura shop modules have been designed taking into consideration the requirement of street front, where the street-facing facades of the shops accentuates the feeling of a gully. The katta areas act as pause points and allows the buyers on site to orient themselves while shopping. Having observed the importance of customized signages in small Indian shops, a detail has been created which allows the seller to customize his shop front while ensuring safety of his shop. The Chivra Gully has always been about its people, the bargaining and the pocket-friendly rates. However, the activity of bargaining is possible the most in places of low maintenance. Hence, simple materials like the usage of Shara board for roofing makes it easy to maintain and also cost-effective for its shopkeepers. The parking along the street creates a threshold between the vehicular chowda and its parallel pedestrian gully. This pedestrian gully, without any vehicular congestion, resonates with the locals and allows them to shop in the informal pattern that they always have, without compromising on the rules and orders required to make the market function efficiently. Upscaling the place in this manner will help retain the essence of Chowda Gully that it has had for the past 50 years. Now moving forward to the second zone, which consists of the masala jewelry shops, the vegetable vendor platforms. Similar to the chivda shops, the masala shops and its existing issues were noted and understood. In the proposed plan of the masala gully, all the masala shops have been brought together to face the gully, and the jewelry shops that were previously scattered are clubbed together. On the other side of the gully, a platform has been introduced to accommodate 25 vegetable sellers which currently encroach the footpath. On the other side of the vegetable, a service bay has been introduced for loading and unloading goods which can be taken up to the godowns on the first floor by the freight lift on site. The first floor of these shops along the godowns have a chili drying area. This area was shifted onto the top because a common observation on site was that most of the streets got encroached due to chilies being dried on the road itself. The space for this activity is oriented in such a way that it faces the south, thus ensuring the chilies dry more effectively. The godowns on the other side would be used to store different types of items. However, these items may get spoiled or get discolored due to extreme hot conditions. Hence, the godowns are oriented towards the north where they could receive diffuse north light, thus preventing any hampering of the goods stored. Keeping in mind the encroachment done by the market sellers onto the roads, a drop-down panel detail which opens from outside has been developed, but the vendors can keep stack of masalas which attract customers, thus contributing to the retail profits. Zone 3 consists of the puja and vegetable vendors, the flower vending zone. Hanging goods along shop fronts, convenient for human reach, is a classic characteristic of Indian shops. This traditional method of hanging goods has been retained and made easier by the holes in the punch metal sheet of the shop roofs, thus allowing the puja gully to gain its vibrancy while avoiding any sorts of encroachment on site. Moving on to Zone 4, which is the residential zone. The once culturally strong chawls of Lal Bagh have now become deteriorated and do not cater to the changing spatial needs of its inhabitants. Hence, the proposed design program, with the help of self-redevelopment, gives the inhabitants 60% additional areas, giving rise to 4 different modules. These modules work in configuration from 30 modules in total and are split up into 3 separate buildings placed on site in between the Chivda and the Masala Gully. All 3 entrances are located along the Chivda Gully, and a lift and staircase block in the Masala Gully is provided for each building. Unit 1 is a duplex of 78.5 square meters with 2 bedrooms, while Unit 2, 3, and 4 are configurations of one another. One common thing between these modules was the drying area that was provided in the utility space along with the outdoor units and the washing machine. In all modules, the bathroom and the toilets have been kept separate so that more number of domestic activities can take place within the household. These units are placed along the corridors in a manner that they shared semi-private and private spaces at every level. All the three buildings have a community space which can be used for different congregational activities. Sloping roofs have been provided on top to prevent any sort of possible means of encroachment. A very dense urban context usually creates a sense of intimidation for the dwellers living in low-rise zones. Hence, all the corridors of the three buildings face each other, ensuring maximum interaction between its residents. The semi-private spaces serve as congregation areas for the practice of local activities like pickle making and papad drying. The staircase on site is oriented towards the Masala Gully so that it adds to the experience of the transition zone and also acts as a platform for its residents to view the festivals during Ganesh Chaturthi. The residential zone has been oriented in a manner so that there is a visual connect between the Makan and the Dukan on site. Small interventions have been provided at different levels of the house. One of them being the usage of a small metal projection along the railing to keep Tulsi Vrindavan. This helps maintain the cultural authenticity of the site. The metal grill of the projection has a small gutter-like drain which carries and disposes of the excessive water rather than letting it spill over onto the building surface, a common issue seen in most residential buildings. 150 pillar slabs with Mangalore tile infill have been used to cut down on the cost of construction. Instead of simple RCC beams, tapering castellated beams have been used to provide support to the cantilevered portion of the housing. They provide both functional and aesthetic value to the housing project. The sloping pillar slab on top adds to the charm of Parel without compromising on the feeling of a Pakka house as desired by its dwellers. Having noted the furniture that is commonly found in these households, the spaces have been created to accommodate the same, giving its inhabitants a sense of comfort. Small windows and poor light and ventilation has been a common issue for most tall housing projects. Keeping this in mind, wider windows of 1.3 into 1.7 have been provided. To eliminate the usage of chhajjas, a detail has been developed where the granite fitting around the windows is extended ahead by 0.6 meters, thus providing protection from rains and also adding to the aesthetic value of the building. Zone 5 consists of the chicken and the fish markets. Even though the current existing fish market faces tremendous footfall throughout the day, poor garbage disposal and ill-maintained services makes it difficult to maneuver around the site. The introduction of chicken shops in the fish market makes it necessary to ensure proper servicing for both activities. For this purpose, a service core has been introduced in the center for both the markets. Both the markets are connected to a service bay on the backside where the service vehicles can be parked. A knife cutter katta is provided in the center where it's a shared activity between the chicken and the fish vendors. In the following section of Zone 5, all the proposed chicken shop modules have a service lane behind them. The size of these lanes has been decided based on the different anthropometric needs of the chicken shop activities. This lane also ensures that there is no spillover of the chicken waste in areas of seller and buyer interaction. There are a total of 8 chicken modules on site, where one module consists of 3 vendors each. A waste pit is created at the center of the 3 vendors, where the waste created during the butchering process can directly fall into the waste bins within the waste pits. This can be collected out via the service lane for garbage disposal to be converted into biogas. Next to the chicken market is the fish market. Here, platforms for a total of 40 sellers has been provided. Similar to the chicken shops, a waste pit has been provided in the center of the two platforms to ensure adequate and hassle-free water supply for cleaning. Small taps have been provided for every vendor. This would help in making their work more efficient while ensuring cleanliness on site. The idea was to work a way around the existing pattern and habits of the users without compromising on the necessary hygiene required in a public space. The next zone consists of the Pavilion of Impermanence, which is situated just beside the fish market on site. The pavilion is inspired by the quality of impermanence as portrayed by the site, hence it is retractable in nature and consists of carrier beams which have been mounted onto the dry fish market and the existing building podium. The aluminium extrusions contain within them a trolley assembly which helps in attaching different materials to the framework of the pavilion. In this way, the pavilion can change the spatial quality of the space through the usage of simple materials such as PVC fabric or even locally available colorful corrugated sheets. The flexible design of the pavilion allows the space to change as per different festivals, be it Daihandi, marriages, or Ganesh Chaturthi, thus allowing the radiance of the festival to be reflected in the space. On normal days, the roof can be shifted inside on top of the dry fish market. This would ensure an open to sky space once again post the festivities. This nature of assembly and disassembly portrayed by the pavilion helps add to the true culture of impermanence on site. What can be on site is that the quality of temporality only exists on a daily basis but also on a daily basis, where the gullies change their use, from a hustling market in the morning to a cricket gully at night. These features of the site were incorporated while designing in order to make the proposal more culturally competent. Keeping in mind the festivities mapped on site, provisions have been made to transform the site, thus portraying the quality of impermanence, reversibility, and euphoria. The drop-down platform on the roof are shut to form a obstruction-free gully used for Mukhadarshan and Visarjan on site. The point 4 high platforms provided along the Masala Gully have grooves which can accommodate temporary infrastructure which is put up during the festival, thus preventing the yearly drilling of the roads on site. What is understood of the place is that the true what is understood of the place is that the true culture of Lal Bagh lies in its nitty-gritties, its chaos, its impermanence, and constant interaction. As quoted by a famous architect, the problem with urban redevelopment in Mumbai is that we give permanent solutions to temporary problems. Keeping this thought in mind, my design proposal aims at designing for the informality by giving simple solutions to the issues faced on site with a sensitive approach, thus proving the power of architecture to heal cultural trauma. Thank you.